You're listening to Change Your POV Podcast, episode 26.
I was angry at the world. Nobody understood me. And this is getting back to, the three tenets of Warrior Hall. I didn't get why people didn't get me. I didn't understand that people didn't get me because they hadn't been there, and they didn't get anything about the military experience because they hadn't suffered through what we had suffered through.
Welcome to Change Your POV Podcast, helping you navigate transitions in your life, like entering and exiting college or the military, changing jobs or careers, and providing you with the coaching and mentorship needed to help you advance in your personal or professional life. Sometimes all you need is to change your point of view. Now, here's your host, Eddie Lazary.
Hello, folks, and welcome back to yet another episode of Change Your POV Podcast. This is part 2 of Salty Marines Present Warrior Hall with Tim Parkhurst. Now, if you missed episode 1 or the first part of this episode, head on over to changeyourpov.com/episode 23, or you can go to iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, or any other podcast player aggregator, and you can check out that episode. So you don't necessarily have to listen to that first before listening to this conclusion. However, things might make a little bit more sense as we conclude with this interview. Before we get into the interview, however, I would like to thank our sponsor, Audible.com. Head on over to changeyourpov.com/freebook for your free 30-day trial and a free audio download. If you like to listen to audiobooks, I do. You got to commute to work. Perhaps you like to listen to something while you're outside shoveling the snow. Like in my case, in a few hours, I'm going to be heading out and doing my sidewalks and my driveway a little bit. And, I plug in the old earbuds and I bring out my cell phone and that's it. I listen to podcasts and I listen to audiobooks. It's awesome. So head on over to changeyourpov.com/freebook for your free 30-day trial and your free audio book download. All right, now let's get into the conclusion of this episode with Tim Parkhurst and Bennett Tanton as we conclude their discussion on their joint venture, Warrior Hall.
And it's not that the civilians are bad. Civilians aren't bad. There were really good people, and this is something I want to make very clear. There were people in my life at the time who were trying really hard to reach out to me and give me good advice. And it was good advice. But because of the void between us, I wouldn't have it. I wasn't listening to it. And if you weren't somebody that I knew that had walked in my shoes, by whatever metric that is, whether you're a fellow former Marine or a fellow combat vet or, whatever the metric is in my own mind, if you didn't meet that, I'm not hearing you. And because I'm not hearing people who are there, around me, willing to help, willing to give good advice, I obviously didn't take that good advice,
Right.
And I clearly failed. I filed bankruptcy a year after getting out. My brand new marriage was on the rocks. I was mistreating my wife. I was using her as my verbal punching bag, and I was a freaking wreck, and I'd been told no so many times in the job market and some entrepreneurial ideas that I had that, I couldn't get anywhere with it. And it very quickly, put me in a place where I was just afraid to even try again, because I was just going to get told no, and I went from one nowhere job to another nowhere job to another nowhere job. And eventually, I finally got a job as a cop with a local police department. And I just freaking hated it.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny how we all kind of like infantry?
Yeah, I
guys,
told myself I wasn't going to do
end
it.
up as law enforcement. I told myself too, but that's where I
said,
ended
there's
up.
no freaking way, because every grunt in the world gets out and becomes a cop. I don't want to be every grunt in the world. I want to freaking do my own thing. And so I tried, and for 4 years I tried, and finally I got to make a living. I got to do something.
Yeah.
So I tried to be a cop, and I hated it so bad. And so shortly after I got hired on the police department, I started hanging out at the local recruiting station trying to put myself back in the Marine Corps.
Mm.
And then finally, I ended up quitting the police department and got put on recruiter aid as a reservist so that I was full time putting myself back in the Marine Corps, you know, and it took me about another 6 months, you know, to do that. But, you know, it was a really tough time, and it was tough on my family. You know, I had my first daughter in 1995, you know, so she was 3 when I came back in the Marine Corps. It was tough on all of us. You know, my wife didn't know what the hell to think of me. You know, she married this guy that, you know, when I was still in, before I got out the first time, you know, I was fairly level headed. I didn't snap at people, but that's because I was still in that familiar environment. You know,
Right.
I hadn't walked out from it yet. The day I left, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I took my uniform off one day, and the next morning when I got up, I didn't have a uniform to put on, and I didn't know what my purpose was in life anymore.
Yep.
What's my purpose? What higher purpose am I serving?
Exactly.
I know that first time that I got out, I was ashamed of who I was.
That's what I say. I'm useless. I'm freaking useless. I'm doing nothing. What am I doing? You know?
Yep.
And it's just like this feeling of shame. You know, and it's just like, oh my God. And every day waking up with that feeling was just overwhelming.
I remember when I finally got out, you know, it was such a rush. It was such a blur because I had like literally from the time I redeployed back from Iraq, I had 30 days to basically get my affairs in order and clear the unit, sign over my equipment, clear the, you know, the housing, all of that, right, and get out. And you know, they stamped my DD 214 whatever, took my ID card and, you know, escorted me to the gate and said, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
No,
You know,
I don't want to cut you off. I am going to cut you off because I basically what I want to show though is that you, as a battle hardened Army staff sergeant, all right, literally coming back, okay, and you've been trained for years and years and years to be a warrior, killer, whatever the hell you want to call yourself. And you have 30 days to decompress and become a civilian.
Yep.
It's so fucked up.
Yeah.
That is so not an okay situation. And then they wonder why guys are blowing their brains out.
Oh, they took. I mean, because I didn't retire. I didn't get.
You didn't get the whole thing.
No, I mean, I didn't even get to keep an ID card.
I
They
got
literally
9 freaking days, dude.
I couldn't even get on. I couldn't even get back on post again unless one of my soldiers came to the gate and got me.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. That is to me the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Bennett and I talk about fairly often is the idea that the military will spend anywhere from 6 months to a couple of years for entry-level training for a guy coming in the military. You know, regardless of service or MOS or whatever, it doesn't matter. It depends on the MOS how long that training goes, but minimum 6 months. You know, and it can go for, you know, anywhere up to a couple of years in some cases. And you know, military training is, you know, by anybody's definition, fairly intense, right?
Yeah.
You know, even just you know, basic training for any of the services is probably more intense than, you know, anything that your average kid in the civilian world is going to be encountering at that stage of their life. And
I mean, it's not your normal corporate orientation.
Oh yeah, not by a long
saying?
shot. And it's happening to a person by and large. You know, most enlistees are people that are right out of high school. So all of your life up to this point, you've lived under someone else's roof. You've basically been a juvenile. You know, you may technically be an adult, but you've not had the responsibility of being an adult on your own out in society, at least for not any length of time. You know, maybe you spent a year or two, whatever, out on your own. Maybe you went to college, and even that's somewhat sheltered. But by and large, most enlistees come in as a brand new 17, 18, 19-year-old, right out of high school, right out of mom and dad's house.
Boots or cherries for a reason.
Yeah, and the point being that you have a young, impressionable kid going through intensive training on how to live life a certain way and be a certain way and have a certain mindset that is warfare oriented, you know, that conditions you to be ready to kill the enemy when the time comes and do the job no matter how hard it is when the time comes, that mindset is ingrained in you early on, and they spend a lot of time and effort to build that into you, right?
Right.
So fast forward a couple of years, 10 years, 20, 25, 30 years down the road when you get out or retire, and what do you get in preparation to become a civilian adult? Because you've never been a civilian adult.
Right.
Never, in most cases.
Yep.
So what preparation do you get? 5 days of death by PowerPoint.
Yep. That's it.
That's it.
Or
if that, I didn't even get that.
If you're lucky, you might get 9.
If you're lucky.
Yeah. So either way, you get a period of days of death by PowerPoint with a parade of people coming in and shoving information down your throat. And it's all good information. Nothing wrong with it. But none of this is going to unlearn how you are as a human. None of this is going to teach you how to be a responsible adult
because
in
at the end
world.
of the day, have you been a normal human for the last 4, 8, 12, 20 years?
Yeah.
You haven't been a normal human, especially since 2001.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got guys that came in like, let's say 95 that are retiring now, that literally 15 years of their adult life, they've done nothing but fight wars. They have done nothing but fight wars. I mean, I have multiple friends that are these guys that have done nothing, and I'm going to say it again. They have done nothing but fight wars. 6, 7 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. And guess what? They're not a guy that should be able to just come right out and be reintegrated into society. They're gonna just not do well.
Well, and here's the thing, for Warrior Hall, we understand in the grand scheme of things, when you take all veterans, all guys getting out of uniform and becoming veterans, everybody that's separated from the service today who will be a civilian tomorrow, they're not all going to have, the proverbial issues. They're not all going to really, really struggle, Some will, probably not even most, right? But it's a pretty big number. It's a pretty big percentage of the ones that will have some issues. And we're not saying that they're all going to be, PTSD and depression, feeling suicidal, blah, 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 all these kinds of things. It doesn't have to be that. What we understand is that there are those issues, and those are really a relatively small percentage of all veterans that really suffer, clinically from some of these diagnoses and, major mental health issues and things like that. But the thing that we recognize at Warrior Hall is that just being a veteran is such a unique circumstance in and of itself, regardless of any clinical diagnosis, regardless of any mental health issue. Just being in the situation that a veteran finds himself in by virtue of, one day you're working in one place, living in one place, have a family situation that's a certain way, and surrounded by a bunch of people that you've come to know and trust in a certain environment. The next day, everything about that changes. I think it is most. I think the number is over 50% of guys who get out in the first year or two get divorced, if they're not already,
Right.
And so family lives change, and you pick up and you have to move because you can't live on base anymore,
Right.
And you got to go home. Well, where's home? Home's somewhere else.
Yeah. And it's not local to where you're stationed most times, right? It's cross country.
There's only so many bases, and they're not in every hometown. So you got to go someplace.
And here's the kicker part of, I don't know about the Marine Corps, but the Army, I joined the Army from my hometown in Nevada, but I was getting out of the Army and I was moving to New England, but I only got paid for the distance from where I was stationed to my home of record.
Yep.
right? And it was almost pretty close to almost twice the distance from where I was going to get out to where I was going to end up. And the military only paid for basically half of that.
Yes.
And,
So you got a lot of
you know,
expenses on top of it as
a
well.
lot of expenses, yeah. And just so we're clear, I want to make everybody aware of this too. A lot of people want to get involved. A lot of veterans want to get involved and help other veterans, but they say to themselves, you know what? I want to get involved. I want to help, but I just don't know if I'm prepared enough or knowledgeable enough to really help somebody out with serious issues that they're having with PTSD or depression or thoughts of suicide. And I say to those people, you know what? You help where you can.
Yep.
Help where you're most comfortable. I don't care if it's maybe you're a veteran and your day job is tax preparation. Help out that way. Say, hey, I'm a veteran. You're a veteran. I can't help you with the PTSD stuff because I just, I don't know. I just can't help there. But you know what I can do? I can help you prepare your
I can
taxes.
sure as hell do your taxes for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you just illustrated the point, that I was trying to make about, being a veteran is such a unique circumstance. It's not just PTSD and freaking depression and suicide and being broken and, recovering from combat wounds and all this kind of stuff. It's not just that. It sometimes is that, but it's also all these other things. But what it really is the unique circumstance of all these things happening at the same time, which almost never happens, in any other population group in America. I mean, there are people in all walks of life that have bad strokes of luck and shit happens and they find themselves homeless, they find themselves unemployed, all kinds of bad things happen. But there's no demographic where that's just a standard course that it's going to happen to you. That doesn't happen to any other demographic in the world, unless you live in a third world country. And so with that understanding, that's why Warrior Hall wants to take the definition of peer support out of the realm of mental health, right? Where to be a peer support specialist, according to the mental health care kind of definition of it, you have to be in recovery for a period of time from either a mental health issue or a substance abuse issue to be able to use your shared experience to help others who are going through the same thing. Right. Well, much of that definition applies, but that whole mental health thing or that whole substance abuse thing doesn't necessarily always apply. It does. Those two things don't necessarily apply in most cases for most veterans.
Right. But because veterans are veterans.
Yeah, veterans are veterans, and and that in and of itself is enough of a circumstance, enough of a unique circumstance with its own challenges that deserves its own peer program that's built specifically for it. And that's what Warrior Hall wants to do is develop its own curriculum for peer support training. And if you're Joe Veteran living in San Antonio or freaking Eureka, California, and you want to help your brother veterans, we'll give you the tools in your toolbox.
I mean, literally, if you're that guy who literally wants to help, it's like we said, you can't be sad if you're being useful. You literally have one buddy that you can help. Okay, that's good enough for us.
Yep.
I'm not going to ask you to follow 3-5 veterans. I'm going to ask you to pick a buddy, and we will help you and that buddy get through this together.
And that really drills down to what differentiates Warrior Hall from every other organization out there. And this is really key. Everything that we're about is face-to-face, combat veteran to combat veteran, period. We don't rely on some paid employee to send you an email to invite you to take part in some activity that is probably not even in your area. And, oh, by the way, even after you respond to that email, we may not get back to you for a couple of months,
because you're on a waiting list.
And then we randomly send you a little box full of goodies with our logo all over it. All right, that's not what we're doing. And I'm not naming names. I got that box in the mail.
Right.
But what I'm telling you is that Warrior Hall is about relationships, and those people that say they don't know how to help, well, here's how to help. And this goes for veterans and civilians. Even if you're not a veteran, If you want to help a veteran, get to know one. Freaking reach out to one, because I guarantee you there's one in your community. There's one that goes to church with you. There's one that goes to school with you. There's one that maybe lives on your street. You know, there's one that works at the grocery store that you go to, or the hardware store. You know, look around. There's a freaking veteran somewhere. You know, and don't ask him freaking, you know, oh, hey, I'm so sorry about, you know, your experience in combat. Well, what do you mean? What are you sorry about? You know, most veterans, the vast majority of veterans, are extremely proud of their experience in service.
Right.
And there are certain things that maybe that, you know, they might have some issues with, or maybe they don't necessarily want to talk about. But they're not those things. They're not things that, you know, they're going to want to hear you to come up and apologize for either. You know, as a civilian, you don't need to engage on that level as a civilian. What you need to simply do is just let them know that you care.
That's it. That you're there. You're willing to help. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. I care, and I'm willing to. You know, I want to be here for you, and understand if there's, you know, I want to get to know you as a person, become your friend.
Right.
And if there's anything I can do, let me know.
I mean, we're asking for guys literally to do 6 different things. Okay. And as a trained peer support specialist, provider, mentor, whatever you want to call it, we're asking guys to do 6 things. Okay. And it's to serve as role models by sharing their personal stories, showing that recovery is possible. Okay.
Or that just success is possible.
Right. That success is possible. And being mentors in every sense of the word. Okay. Teaching goal setting, problem solving, symptom management skills, and a variety of recovery tools. And Tim had said, giving you tools in your tool belt to deal with issues that you may have. You may or may not have them, but giving you the skills and the tools to deal with issues that you might have. All right.
Knowing the right tool to pull out at the right time.
Right.
You know.
Or just knowing that there is a tool.
Correct. Correct. Empowering by helping others identify their strengths, supports, resources, and skills. That's another one. And then being an advocate by working to eliminate the stigmas. How many times have you seen veterans in a workplace and just in everyday life deal with the stigma that they're a disabled veteran? Tim touched on that perfectly earlier. You know, it's basically one of the things that one of the tenets of is basically being able to come to us and not being judged for anything.
Absolutely.
You know, and the non-judgmental side of that is paramount.
Right.
You know, I mean, and even, I mean, you know, we have the playful banter between, you know, oh, you know, you were a cook or you were a freaking whatever, or, you know, I mean, that's to be expected, because that's just how it is. Oh, you were a Coast Guardman, or you were in the Navy, and, you know, I was a Marine or whatever. We get all that, but right, the men's department of the Navy. But stigma is different, you know. And I find that a lot of times nowadays that veterans are woefully inept at dealing with people that are outside their MOSs or outside their service, and they need to kind of get over it.
You know, a flip side of that same coin with regard to eliminating stigmas that are attached to veterans, and some of these stigmas are attached to veterans by other veterans. It's not
correct. Absolutely.
It's not just civilians that have misperceptions about how veterans are. There are a lot of veterans out there that don't understand how to deal with other veterans. But the flip side of that same coin, you know, you got to eliminate the stigmas, but you've also got to ensure accountability, personal accountability for the veteran. You know, if you say you're going to do something, then freaking do it. You know, if you set a goal for yourself, then stick to it. You know, if you have a plan for your life, if you want to be a certain thing, if you want to achieve something, you know, if you want to fix whatever you think is wrong in your life or whatever you've identified, you know, and you put a plan in place, then do the plan. You know,
Right.
don't shortchange yourself. Don't cheat on it. Don't make excuses, right? How many of us have made excuses? I mean, we all have done it once or twice, if not a lot. But there's some people that
Right.
there's some people that make a freaking living out of excuses.
Oh yeah.
You know, and we're all about, you know, the flip side of eliminating the stigmas. That's what other people attach to you. But holding you
Yep.
accountable, that's you. That's the flip side of that coin. You have to be responsible for you.
Right. And
Yeah.
like with in the peer support realm, where I literally do this as a profession every day, I deal with guys that literally, like, you can lead them to water, but they will not drink. And at the end of the day, you have to be willing to help yourself.
Yep.
um and we can push you as far as we want, but if you're not willing to help yourself, then we can't really help you.
Right.
um
It's like I've met veterans that, you know, they have this kind of this persona like, well, I'm a veteran, so, you know, every company in a 50-mile radius should just be beating down my door and offering me a job because
right.
I'm a veteran. And it's like, you know, then I meet other veterans that are literally doing everything they can to try to get a job, and they can't get, you know what I mean? So it's like you're right.
But
You've
it's
got
it's
to.
like they haven't sought help in the right places.
Exactly. That's
I mean,
right.
I
That's
shit,
right.
I sent you a resume earlier today.
Well, first, I wouldn't call that a resume,
Yeah,
and
it's
second,
a nightmare is what it is.
I am going to help that young Marine, and I'm going to square his ass away.
Right.
No, because no, but that's why I do what I do,
Right.
because I'm not a trained peer support specialist, and I can't do what you do, Bennett. But you know what? I know that I can do what I do,
Well,
and
but
what
but
I
but I could
what
say
I
that
can
we are
do.
going to get you trained as a person.
Oh, absolutely, we'll get trained. But my whole point is, you know what? Don't wait to get some awesome training. Start with where you are with what you have right
Yeah.
now.
Exactly.
What
Yeah,
can you do for
please.
your community? For
That's
God's
right.
sakes, what can you do?
Get to know a
And
veteran, you know, and just be a friend. You know,
Right.
that's
people.
it.
And that kind of
Yep.
segues into the last point that I've got to make is peer supports providers or specialists, they act as liaisons by identifying social supports in the community and encouraging the expansion of local resources.
Yeah.
That's it. Because when I got out of the army, I was 30 something years old. I had a wife and two kids. I had no idea what a 401k was. Is that a shocker to you?
No,
Not
because
really.
what the
No.
hell? Not really. I mean,
Sad,
No,
but
but I
not
mean,
shocking.
how many guys are getting out of the military right now and have no idea what a 401k is,
clueless.
or have no idea how to get their own health care coverage, or how to, you know, talk, you know, put their kids into the right school district. I mean, there are just so many things that veterans getting out of the military just aren't equipped or know how to do, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Everyone is an expert at something. Everybody is an expert at something, and that something can help somebody else out.
And
All you have to do is just find somebody that is. And I'm not saying just, you know, put an ad on Craigslist like, you know, hey, I'm G cool diggity dog and I can solve all your problems. But, you know, make a friend, find a veteran, figure out what it is that they're struggling with, and if you know what, if you got the skill sets to be able to help them out, and help them out.
it's why we have to put
Just
together
say,
teams, right?
say cool
Yeah,
diggity dog.
Yeah,
yeah, you like
diggity
that?
diggity dog. It's like
Wow.
Snoop. It's like Snoop diggity dog.
That's right. That's right.
Um, but
Sorry, I just
it's
had
like,
to
and
highlight.
I've beat this to death on every website that I'm on, every podcast that I'm on, is straight up the acronym team.
Hmm.
If you can put a team together, you will be so successful, or you can be so successful, because together everyone achieves more. And people look at me like, oh, you're the cheesiest son of
Whoa,
a bitch in the
you
world for
just
saying
used the
that.
acronym for team.
Right. You know what I
Oh,
mean? But people look at that as like wicked cheesy. But you know what? Fuck you.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, it's the truth. I mean,
It is.
we're our entire base, everything that we've come up with since we were 18 years old, being in the military, most of us, you know, between 18 and 22 joined,
Yeah.
was based around that concept.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
So why
look
is
at,
it going to be any different
look,
20 years later in the civilian world?
yeah, I mean, look at the terminology the military uses: fire team, support team,
Yeah.
right?
Team.
Uh,
Hey, it's
Team,
all
team,
about
team,
everything.
team, team, team,
It,
team.
it is. It's all about team. It's all about section. It's all about. There is no such thing as, well, until the Army came up with the what, Army of
Army
One.
of One. There is no INT.
Marines
Oh
coach
my
so much about
God.
that. Oh my God.
That came out. I was like, what the
Hey,
hell
hey,
is that all about?
all I
They're
have
not
to say
helping
is
the cause there.
I have one of the coolest T-shirts ever. It's got a Marine Corps emblem. Actually, it was made by Ranger Up. I'll give them a little plug.
Yeah.
A Ranger Up. It says Marines. We have the best commercials.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because
I-
bottom line is we got dudes slaying dragons.
That's
Our
right.
freaking commercial.
Yeah. And we've got Dan Evans to thank for that.
Right.
But yeah, okay.
Dan Evans is the man, baby. Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
We all know Dan Evans.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
the man.
He
Gunny.
is.
Oh, there you go again. Gunny Evans.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Shit.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, guys. This went over, obviously, but that's okay because my plan is to turn this into two episodes.
Right.
And also, to be honest with you, I don't know how much is going to be salvageable at the very beginning of this.
No, I'm sorry.
No, you don't know how bad it was.
But you know what? At
Fine.
the end of the day, it's good stuff. So
It is good stuff. You know what? This won't be the last time we bring you on here, Tim. It was awesome to talk to you, and
Yeah, man.
I'm really
glad I was able to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, really excited about Warrior Hall and what you guys have to offer and the passion that you guys are going to put into it. And you know, it's not going to be the hollow, empty walls of, you know, $1 billion, you know, nonprofit. It's something that I think people will be able to really kind of connect with, associate with, and finally find something that's missing in their life, whether it's a team, cohesion, camaraderie, whatever it is that's missing in somebody's life.
Yeah.
And everyone, I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you that, you know, getting out of the military was a huge struggle for me. And I like, again, we get into this, people just don't get it. But I mean, I literally, there's days where I wake up and I miss, all I want to do is just hop into a pair of PTs and hop into like a battalion run or a company run and run up and down my street singing cadence. How stupid. I mean, the things that we used to absolutely just cringe about when we were in, you know, are the things that we find that we miss the most when we're out. And that's the, you know what I mean? It's silly, but I'm really excited about Warrior Hall and what it is you guys are going to bring to the landscape that is, you know, military support organizations out there.
I mean, at the end of the day, there's other organizations out there that are decent organizations doing good work for veterans, right?
Doing fantastic work.
I mean,
any of them. Yeah.
There's so many. I mean, literally, like guys like Gallant Few.
Hope for the Warriors.
And Hope for the Warriors. Even the Wounded Warrior Project has its place. At the end of the day, there's guys that are getting real value from stuff that they're doing. And you and I have talked about that in the past, Eddie. But you know, I mean, there's charities all over the place that are doing fantastic things. But at the end of the day, I think that when we really roll everything out, because at the end of the day, we haven't really rolled out the Warrior Hall in its complete glory.
Yeah, we haven't launched.
We haven't really launched, but I think we have a unique perspective on the veteran community from a lot of different aspects that is going to change the game a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I want people to look at us. I want people to realize that we are different. Even though you can go to our website, you can go to our Facebook page, you can like us, you can follow us, all that you want. And I'm telling you that when we like really launch, I truly feel in my heart that we are going to change the game in the veteran nonprofit scene. Just because we have this vision that it's just different.
Yeah. What we envision for the level of individual involvement from one veteran to another is unheard of in the current game. You know, there's nobody out there that's grown beyond a local level that comes close to being as one-on-one, you know, combat veteran to combat veteran, you know, as close to that same brotherhood that you had when you were in uniform as what we're going to be. You know, we're not trying to replace the military and be the military for you. And, you know, you mentioned earlier about how, you know, some guys want to just get away from the military when they get out. You know, they don't want to have anything to do with the military anymore, or even the government for that matter. And that's true. But you know what? Just because you don't want anything to do with the military anymore doesn't mean that you have to cut yourself off from your fellow veterans.
From the brotherhood.
Right. Because the military and the brotherhood are two different things. The military is the institution. The brotherhood is your brothers. And
that's right.
Two different things.
I mean,
you never turn your back on your brothers.
Right. And these are these guys that are on your left and your right every day. I mean, guys aren't going to Afghanistan and running through Kajaki and Sangin and Helmand because their government tells them. I mean, they are, but they're there for the guys on their left and their right.
Absolutely.
Why does that change? That should not change when they come home. And that's what we're all about.
Yeah.
Period. Is literally being there again for the guys on your left and your right.
Yep.
You might be the most fucked up individual on the planet, but you will have value. You have value in our community.
Hey, that's me. Thanks, Bennett.
I'm
glad you think I have value.
How many times do I call you a week, Dan? How many times do I call you a week?
We talk several times. Sometimes every day. You know, I mean,
it's not about business. Trust me. It's about, dude, what did you do today? How are you going?
You know,
how are you doing?
He and I are wingmen. You know, and you know, that's an Air Force term, I guess. Whatever, but that's battle buddies. You know,
buddies, whatever you want to call it.
And you know, I'm so glad to have met Bennett because I was as much as I learned over the last couple decades about that 5-year period that I was out of the Marine Corps, and you know, looking back on it, hindsight being 2020, I started to get a clearer picture just in recent years of how bad that really was for me, and what I did wrong, and how I let it go wrong. And even with all that hindsight, you know, when I retired in 2014, I still started to drift. You know, there just was a lack of clarity about what I was doing and where I was going. And, you know, just being real fortunate in being able to form some relationships and forge partnerships with some fellow veterans, Bennett being one of them, has really helped me to, you know, I mean, nobody's given me anything, but damned if it hasn't helped me freaking just get my shit straight, you know?
And listen, folks, those of you out there, you know, this is coming from, you know, a senior non-commissioned officer, Master Sergeant of the United States Marine Corps with, you know, oodles of years of experience in the military that comes out and still struggles.
Well, I can tell you as a professional peer support specialist that I have a lieutenant colonel and a colonel that regularly seek guidance from me. I got out of the military as a corporal.
You're so
well. I have a lieutenant colonel and a colonel that literally, I'm not shitting you, at least once a week contact me for guidance.
Yep.
Because and it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. The community is the community. Period.
This isn't an enlisted versus an officer thing. This isn't a lower enlisted versus an NCO thing.
Not at
all. This isn't a 3 years versus a 20-year thing. This is you served in the military, you're going to get out and you're going to struggle, period.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know what? And if you're not struggling when you get out, then you're blind to something, or something is happening in the background that you're not aware of yet.
Or you're really lucky.
Or you're really, really lucky, right? Or but I'll tell you, you get out of the military, you're going to struggle with something somewhere at some point. It may not be right away. It may not be 5 years down the road. It could be, in Bennett's case, it could be 10, a decade later or longer before things just finally.
And it does span all socioeconomic issues. Because, like I said, I have a lieutenant colonel that I deal with on a regular basis. This person was homeless, retired U.S. Army lieutenant colonel, drug addict. At the end of the day, drug addict and homeless.
And his pension, his retirement pension, is being a colonel, is probably more money than I made on active duty as a master sergeant.
Correct.
Oh yeah.
Correct.
So money's not an issue.
But guess what? Homeless, just bottom of the barrel. And you know what? It happens to everybody. If it can happen to a battalion commander, it can happen to anybody. So get out there, find the help, find the community, call Warrior Hall. I'm telling you, my phone number's, and I say this all the time, my phone number is public. My email is public. If you need help, call me, call Tim, call Eddie. I guarantee you that we'll be there for you, or we can direct you in the right direction.
So we'll wrap this up. Bennett, you go first. Tell everybody where you can be found, and then Tim, you can follow suit.
Well, you can go to warriorhall.org, either on Facebook, Warrior Hall, or the website is Warrior Hall, www.warriorhall.org. You can also find both Tim and I at www.cigarsandseastories.com. And we can, just give us a holler, let us know what you need, and hopefully we can point you in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And, on our website, there's a contact page. Our address, our email and phone numbers are on there. Feel free to reach out. We will never turn a veteran away, any veteran. But just to clarify, Warrior Hall is aimed at the combat veteran community. And what we mean by that is if you've got a campaign medal that proves that you deployed overseas at some point in your career. And the only reason we do that is because, we don't want some guy that did a couple tours in Ramadi and has some real issues that he wants to get off his chest to sit down with some, kid that sat on an Air Force base and never went anywhere.
Right.
And because he's not going to get it, so so that's why there's that sort of focus on that demographic, but we'll never turn a guy away.
No, and at the very least, we'll hook you up with some serious local, some good stuff to help you get through whatever you're going through.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But especially since we're in the pre-launch phase and we're brand new, we want you to look at the website. We want you to reach out to us by email or on Facebook. And give us feedback.
Tell us what we can do better.
Yeah, tell us what you'd like to see in an organization like ours. Let us know if you want to help, and we would be happy to reach out to you and start putting this team in place. Because that's the only way we're going to make this happen, and the only way we're going to reduce the 22 plus a day that are taking their lives is as a team to reach out face to face to all of our fellow combat veterans.
And as I say to Tim on a daily basis, shit's about to get real.
It's about to get real, baby.
So literally, if you've got issues, do it. Reach out and man.
All right. Thanks, Bennett. Thanks, Tim, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
You can find all the show notes for this episode at changeyourpov.com. Never miss an episode. Hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. We have a lot more great content headed your way. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can contact me at eddie@changeyourpov.com. I would absolutely love to hear from you. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Change Your POV podcast with Eddie Lazary. Check out more content by going to changeyourpov.com. And remember, your ability and willingness to change your point of view will open doors of opportunity.